Meghan and Harry are being exposed in a new Vanity Fair article. It's got the internet lit. You guys asked for a recap of it, so let's dive. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV tea, served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. What's up, guys? Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. Happy Friday. We have made it to the weekend, everybody. Everybody in the club. Lots to dive into today, specifically Meghan and Harry. Not too much going on in Blake and Baldoni land, but you know what? If there is anything going on, I'm pretty sure Candace Owens and Goosh have you covered. Or Daily Dose of Donna. Go support Daily Dose of Donna. Maybe I'll have some updates on Blake and Baldoni over the weekend, but nothing has been groundbreaking. And rather than doing a whole new episode, I'm like, oh my God, did you see this one little fragment of information? And like turning that into an entire episode. Listen, I've covered the story extensively for over 4 weeks now. So there you go. I'm sure as other big breaking bits come out, I will continue to cover the big breaking bits, but all the little side tangents and theories and Colleen Hoover and all of the stuff is I don't know. Maybe we'll get back to it next week. But at least for today, I asked you guys what other topics you want to cover. And a lot of you said the Obama Jennifer Aniston affair, divorce rumors, which listen, I've been very clear. I think the Obamas are likely on the brink of a divorce. They have not been seen together. It looks like that we may get our first big presidential divorce, or at least separation. I don't know if they'll go full divorce, but at least I believe that they are separated, and I believe the reports that they're living separate lives. I don't believe the Jennifer Aniston affair rumors, though. I don't think Jennifer Aniston has anything to do with Barack. I don't think that they're like secretly fondling in, the janitor's closet at the White House. I don't think that is happening. But what else? Oh, and then there was the JFK files and the RFK files and the MLK files, which we're, as of right now, still waiting for a full declassification of those files. As they drop, or once they drop, we will do a full deep dive into those, because I feel like that's going to be the juiciest. I'm excited for that. Give me the JFK files, okay? I'm tired of talking about Baldoni in the basement. I want to know who was in the basement when JFK got whacked. That's what I want to know. Questions I have. Okay. Okay, so we'll get into Meghan and Harry in just a sec. Brittany says, "Hey Zach, just wanted to thank you for your post about the MAHA moms. We get a lot of hate because people associate it with Trump, but we just want healthy kids and eating healthy foods." Actually, I will read that. Thank you, Brittany. It's Brittany Biatch. Yes, I will. It was a post that I shared that was about, I guess, a new American Values did a new piece called "The Not So Secret Power of MAHA Moms," who were previously 30 years ago, soccer moms were the most powerful forces in American politics. It was 1996, the year of the presidential race between Bill Clinton and Senator Bob Dole, or Doley. And I was a little too young to participate in that one, so I don't know. But the 90s moms in the government, the 90s moms wanted the government to support education, get tough on crime, improve healthcare, things that would directly impact the lives of their children. They were also credited to help the swing election for Clinton. Many MAHA moms. Oh, wait, where's the part that I posted? I think it's this one. Just as those soccer moms worried about the fate of their children's futures, so do the MAHA moms, which MAHA stands for Make America Healthy Again. Or I feel like my mission is to make America hot again. MAHA moms lining up behind Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You probably know of them. They're the PTA members, nurses, and yogis. They're also influencers with millions of followers, wellness entrepreneurs, and Silicon Valley titans. They're the mothers of children with autism, allergies, and ADHD. Many are former Democrats, but they feel like their cause transcended party lines. Shouldn't everyone want clean water, fresh air, and healthy foods? As Moms Across America puts it, poison isn't partisan. I will stand by the MAHA moms. Listen, I worked with the MAHA moms. My background is in helping families affected by autism. We used to fund medical grants to help families that were impacted by autism. If you had a kid with autism and you were if you were of a lower income family, we provided you with doctor's visits, nutritional counseling, lab testing. We covered all of that. And, supplementation and diet. We were called quacks back in the day. What? You're encouraging people to eat probiotics 15 years ago. It was like, you're encouraging people to eat probiotics. What? That's quackery. Well, guess what, motherfucker? Quackery just became science. And now everybody takes probiotics. Now everybody's starting to remove gluten and dairy and sugar and use not paint on the walls that doesn't have lead. Jessica Alba and Kate Hudson came out with lifestyle books on how to use clean ingredient cleaning products and personal care products. And now that's what the movement has become. The granola moms are now the MAHA moms. At the time, we used to call them mommy warriors because they were badass bitches, some badass ladies, some badass women that were leading the forefront of the health and wellness of their families. RFK Jr. was by our side through all of it. His mission, I believe, was always strong. His heart has always been in the right place, despite the media tactics, which we've covered a lot over the last several weeks, and how we see Blake Lively and her publicist and her PR team and Ryan Reynolds manipulate the media to put out this narrative about Justin Baldoni. That's how I'm able to recognize these tactics now, because I saw them going on for the last 15 years. I'm 32, or I'll be 32 in June. I'll be 32 this year, but I started all this when I was like 15. So yeah, over 15 years, 17 years now. So I definitely believe in the MAHA moms. I love the MAHA moms. I will fight for the MAHA moms all day, every day. Drag me in the Apple Podcast reviews in the comments. How many Fs do I give? 0, 0, none, not one. I will stand and ride for the MAHA moms until the end of time. Period. Okay, that's my rant. Sorry, I didn't mean to, but Brittany got me all fired up about it. Okay, but there is a new article that has come out. It was a cover story published for the February issue of Vanity Fair, inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's big business ambitions 5 years after the royal exit. The Megxit. Is that what we call it? The Megxit? Because Meghan made him exit. Ensconced in their cozy Montecito mansion, the Sussexes are living the American dream. By all accounts, the love is real, but their foray into moguldom has not always been a smooth ride. By Anna Peely. Let's dive in, shall we? Now, you know that I have covered the, what do you call it? You know that I've covered the royal couple before. I mean, do we still call them the royal couple? Because technically they're no longer a royal couple. But anyway, Meghan and Harry, I don't call them the royal couple. I call them the royal refugees. And so the royal refugees, that's my term before Candace Owens or Goose try to steal it. It is the royal refugees. And so because they sought refuge in Tyler Perry's mansion when they fled Canada to come to SoCal. But yeah, Ted with the Tampa says it's not sounding like RFK Jr. will get confirmed. I don't know. People didn't think Pete Hegseth would get confirmed, and I feel like Pete Hegseth definitely had a much. Listen, if RFK Jr. not to get back to that, but if RFK Jr. does not get confirmed, I think there are a lot of Americans that pledged their support behind him, and they reflected that in the polls. And I think Democrat or Republican, if they don't confirm him, it's more to protect their bottom line. I love how he called out Bernie Sanders yesterday in the hearing, when he called out Bernie for accepting 1.5 million in pharma funding in 2020. And Bernie's like, no, it was just supporters. It wasn't the actual, C-suite executives. It wasn't the actual companies that were donating. They were individual workers that were supporting me. And then I had people that used to work in that world that then, that worked in sales in that world. And they were like, yes, this is how the leaders of those companies would then put influence on the employees to pledge their donations and to pledge their money to certain PACs to support certain politicians, and how the system and the game are set up. So I did appreciate RFK calling out Bernie Sanders for the fund. I mean, Bernie Sanders was the biggest beneficiary of pharma money, and I'm glad that it was called out. So I think, a lot of people are threatened by their own personal self-interests, including Pocahontas herself, Miss Elizabeth Warren. But I'm hopeful that he will be confirmed. I think that he will be an asset to our country. You know, poison is nonpartisan. Um, I was watching some of the hearings. We'll see what happens. But if the Senate does not confirm him, then I think there will be a lot of Americans that will use that power the same way they did this last election, and they'll remember who was with them and who was not, and who's fighting for them and who's trying to protect their bottom lines. So I think the people have spoken. I think the majority of Americans have been very clear about how they feel, and just listening to the support that was in the room during his confirmation hearings, you can tell America is definitely behind RFK Jr. Some people still buy the media tactics and the headlines and uh, the altered narrative that is out there about him, or the clickbait out of context comments that he's made. But he's still got my support. All right, back to the royals. So Vanity Fair published this expose, this cover story on Meghan and Harry. Sorry, I know that's what most of you guys are here for. You're not here for my RFK rants, but people are going to bring it up in the live chat. I'm talking about it. I'm sorry. That's me. That's what I do. That's who I am. Okay. Yes, RFK, Tulsi, Cash. Let's go, baby. Like I said, I think Hegseth was the toughest one to get in, and he got in. Good people don't chase power. That goes for politicians and celebrities. Absolutely. And he even said, he's like, listen, I got a good life. I got a comfortable life. I don't need to be, I don't need this HHS position. I am doing just fine. But my mission, and he even said, I prayed to God for many, many years that he would put me in a position that can actually help the American people. So I read this Vanity Fair article all this morning. I consumed it all, and there's a lot in it. I'll go over some of my notes from this article. I'll just kind of go through it in chronological order, and we can reference the things that we've covered from the royal refugees in the past. Remember, we did book club with Tom Bower's book Revenge, which really went into Meghan Markle's past and her history, and her dad and her upbringing, and how she tends to manipulate the media herself. But anyway, so the article opens up talking about how Prince Harry is very philanthropic. They talk about how he brought forth the Archwell Foundation, and that appears to be the main focus for Meghan Markle and for Prince Harry now, as they have their Archwell Foundation. They're like, we're do-gooders. We want to do good in the world. And then they referenced the Spotify deal back in 2020, which was reportedly for $100 million. Spotify makes it clear that they don't comment on these types of things. They don't disclose these numbers, but they seem to dispute that the actual amount that Meghan and Harry were paid, or supposed to be paid or signed on, was not $100 million. So a rep for Spotify denies that report, but then again, they always deny these reports when these numbers get leaked to the press. Spotify members apparently were very excited about the addition of Meghan and Harry. A lot of people, I feel like, in the US have very much loved Meghan Markle. And obviously, she came from the USA. She went to the UK. She embraced royal life. I think a lot of Americans were like, yes, we love her. Ultimately, it didn't end up working that well for her in the end. But so Spotify team, very excited. They said that the development process was challenging, though, that Meghan and Harry they wanted a big theme, but they didn't have a whole lot of ideas for how to, they just knew they needed to make an impact. They wanted a podcast that was going to really kind of, make change, I don't even know what they were hoping. I think they wanted like another knockout. But I feel like a lot of those, like when Ashley Graham did her podcast, when Kim Kardashian did her podcast, like a lot of those podcasts that came in and wanted to be like a podcast juggernaut, like let's look at who's actually at the top of this. At the tippity top of the podcaster, we have Mel Robbins. That's a good one. Joe Rogan, Call Her Daddy. Those are, definitely at the forefront for sure. Megyn Kelly. Wow. Megyn Kelly's number 7. John Colbert. Candace Owens is number 11. Chloe in Wonderland. Okay. So like a lot of these are thought-provoking shows. They have an intention behind them, they have a very clear premise, and it seems like this is what Meghan and Harry were going for when they signed their deal with Spotify, but they didn't have any idea of how to make that happen. And I think it's because they don't have an original voice, they don't have an original point of view. I think I think Harry's lost, and we'll get into that as the article outlines, but I think Harry's lost, and I think Meghan is very ambitious, and that's not a bad thing, but I just think she has a very clear idea of the narrative and the perception that she wants people to have of her, but you can't always control that, you know? So they did trial runs, nothing stuck. They had a lot of different ideas. Harry at one point wanted to interview like powerful men powerful men like Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. He wanted to like sit down with them and like really grill them. But I'm just like, come on. Like Vladimir Putin is gonna be like, yeah, let me sit down with Prince Harry. Like, what a joke. Even Donald Trump, you really think Donald Trump's gonna be like, yeah, let me sit down with Prince Harry? It was just silly to think that he was even at that level where he could interview people of this magnitude. Now, whether you like Putin or like Trump or not, I know they're very polarizing people, but when it comes to interviewing them, you need a real, like, someone that can command the presence, that can command the tone of the room when you're in their presence, because you have to be in control of the narrative. And unfortunately, I don't think somebody as meek as Prince Harry would be able to effectively interview Vladimir Putin. Right? You need somebody that's going to be a juggernaut, that's going to ask the hard questions, that's going to push, that's going to put their foot down and really challenge some of the narratives about them that there are. Like, and what is your intention? Because you have to think at the end of the day, as a podcaster and interviewer myself, I always like to think of like, what is the intention behind this interview? What am I hoping to leave the viewer or the listener with by the end of it? Harry had another idea. So that one didn't come to fruition. But Harry had another idea where he wanted to sit down with sociopaths on the show to get inside their psyche, I guess. Again, Prince Harry is not the type of person to do a show like that and make it interesting or effective. Like, he's a very vanilla guy. We don't really, outside of the party boy image that we knew of him before, we really don't know who Prince Harry is now, aside from somebody that's lost without the royal family. He left his family, he abandoned that. And at this point, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's gonna really do much of anything. But other concepts would be Harry fixing things, like him doing an episode on global warming, or there was another idea about hot cocoa talk, where Harry would sit down and drink hot cocoa with his friends, and they would talk about, I don't know, things you talk about when you're sitting down with your friends and drinking hot cocoa. Who came up with that stupid idea? A hot cocoa? Like, that's really what Prince Harry drinking hot cocoa and chatting with his friends. Who are his friends? Who's he gonna sit down with? Oprah? I mean, come on. Let's get back to reality. But it seemed like when they were in all of these meetings and all these pitch ideas, Harry didn't seem that interested, despite Spotify's fat paycheck, which the author of this Vanity Fair article seems to make like, well, what is your motivation behind doing this podcast? I don't know, that you're being paid a rumored $100 million, a reported $100 million paycheck for you and your wife. So I think you should take some sort of interest. I think you should want to make this project successful, or this endeavor successful. Bill Simmons, who founded The Ringer at Spotify, which is now a division of Spotify, The Ringer. Remember, he called them grifters. He said that he tried to help Prince Harry, and they had like a Zoom call, I think, and he was trying to help him shape together what his podcast was going to be. Because obviously, Bill Simmons is somebody that's been in the game. He's a podcast juggernaut. The Ringer is something that he has built very successfully, but he called them grifters and he said, fuck them. So he definitely was not interested in working with them at all. But it doesn't seem like they knew how to work or how to make something meaningful. Obviously, they have their charity, but I feel like the people that are around them and their advisors are the ones that are kind of guiding everything based off of the thought process of developing their content with Spotify. It doesn't seem like they had any real idea or direction. They just wanted it to be good. They wanted it to be big. They wanted it to be impactful, right? Then they ended up developing Archetypes, which was Meghan Markle's podcast about breaking stereotypes about famous women or powerful women. And she wanted Taylor Swift and she wanted Megan Thee Stallion, which I don't know, is kind of just like Like, is Megan Thee Stallion really what we're considering? Like, Taylor Swift, you can say, "Okay, she's got a global audience, she did her Miss Americana documentary, she's tried to influence social issues." Fine. I can see if you squint your eyes and tilt your head, you can make the Taylor Swift one work, right? But Megan Thee Stallion was just kind of strange to me. Apparently, both Taylor and Megan declined, but then a rep from Megan's team said, absolutely, that's not true. We were never going to do an interview with Meghan Markle on archetypes. Did anybody even listen to archetypes? I feel like anybody that I heard was like, oh, yeah, I listened to like an episode or two, but like, dumb. Ultimately, the episodes would get watered down according to Spotify staffers, and they would have, like, very little substance in them. None of the episodes were really landing, none of the interviews were really landing, and then they talk about how Megan would yell at staffers when they didn't agree with her direction, and they get into this thing about the different types of yelling, right? You can yell by raising your voice, you can yell by just being very stern, right? When you're getting upset with somebody, you can just have a very stern voice, and that immediately lets people know that you're upset with them. And so I guess Megan had that cadence when she was providing her criticism or her feedback for how she didn't want the show to go. Apparently, she was very controlling, and people did not really enjoy working with her. I know a separate report came out after this about how they used to call her, oh God, what was that Joan Crawford movie? Not Mommy Dearest. There was another Joan Crawford movie about a diva, and they named her after the diva in the what is Joan Crawford diva movie? What was it? It's not Mommy Dearest. It's not Possessed. Mildred Pierce? Why am I blanking on this? Joan Crawford movies. Not Baby Jane. Let's see. Trog. Oh, Trog. I used to love watching or consuming stuff about Joan Crawford. Queen Bee. That's what it was. Queen Bee with Joan Crawford. And then the main character, her name was Eva. And so apparently the Spotify staffers nicknamed Megan Eva. Yes, that's what they used to call her. They used to call her Eva because they believe she emulated Eva from the Joan Crawford film, Queen Bee. So they considered her to act like a queen bee. And none of them, apparently, a lot of them were excited to work with her, but many of them did not enjoy their experience working with Meghan Markle. And then Meghan and Harry, they would make these demands. And if there was any pushback, they would get really cold. And I mean, I see this more with Meghan. I don't see Harry as somebody that really has a strong, distinctive voice or backbone. So, if anything, if somebody's kind of bulldozing, I would see that more of a Meghan thing versus Harry thing because he just kind of seems kind of meek, right? And apparently, they describe it as Meghan was constantly playing checkers, not as smart as playing chess, but playing checkers. And they describe her as like a mean girls style teenager, right? That's just real catty, and she thinks that she's the queen bee, so to speak. Another staffer, only one, claimed that Meghan was actually very lovely, and I believe they Meghan gave this staffer a gift, and they appreciated that. So they had nice things to say about Meghan Markle. But many of them would apparently leave their jobs at Gimlet. So there are different divisions of Spotify. There was Gimlet, which I don't believe is there anymore. There is the Ringer, and I think there was a third division that also may have gotten cut. Because I remember when I signed my deal with the Ringer back in 2022. And I remember getting to go in studio and look and actually, well, I mean, I still get to go in Spotify studio pretty often, but and tape there or go to different events and stuff there. But I remember when I first went there, I got to see where Gimlet is or where Gimlet was, and then there were all the big layoffs that were coming out. But so apparently, a lot of people were leaving their jobs at Gimlet, or they would take an extended leave of absence to avoid having to interact with Meghan. So she wasn't very well liked with the Spotify team. We don't know much about Netflix. It doesn't seem like any of the Netflix people came out and talked about their experience working with the royal couple. But even there was they referenced this interview that Meghan did, I guess, on Archetypes with Mindy Kaling, and she talked about how she was very shy and she was kind of a loner growing up. And I guess they used this to talk about how Meghan kind of twists details and twists the narrative to kind of get more to look more like a martyr, to get more sympathy from the audience. And so they talk about Meghan and the experience with Spotify and archetypes, and then they shift gears a bit to talk about Harry's book Spare, which we also read on this podcast, and we covered that in our book club as well. So we've covered the royals in depth here before. But so in Spares, where he divulged about his family, one source says that even though, because a lot of people are like, my God, this book is so bad, it's very disparaging towards the royal family, specifically King Charles and Prince William, his brother. And so one source says that they didn't believe that he fully understand how much he was going to hurt his relationships, specifically with his family, through writing this book. That they think, which tells me he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, right? He's not that bright. And I think he really thought, like, I'm just telling my truth and this is my story. Because I'm sure Meghan was like, your truth, we have to get into your truth and be honest and, all of that stuff, right? Because like we're in victim culture now where everybody's truth matters, and listen to your therapist, and your therapist is going to validate your feelings, and everybody has feelings, and everybody has childhood trauma, and like all of that sort of stuff. But they also referenced a wedding for one of Harry's friends in the UK, and ultimately Harry did not attend the wedding, which was not controversial, but it was definitely a headline driver. And so there's speculation over whether he didn't go to the wedding because there was litigation regarding security in the UK, and how if he went to this wedding in the UK and he kind of went to just attend, and it either flew under the radar or the trip itself was successful, then the argument could have been made that you don't need security, because if you don't currently have security, but you're able to still get in and out of the UK and attend this wedding and have a good time, then the monarchy doesn't need to pay for your security when you come to the UK, because at that point you're fine and you've stepped down from your royal duties. So you don't get the privileges of being part of the royal family because you've officially stepped down from your role. And then the other theory is that maybe he didn't go to the wedding because he was trying to avoid his brother, because he's had some not so nice things to say about Prince William. And so it's possible that he maybe didn't want to face that head on, or possibly a combination of both. But they claim that Harry doesn't really understand real life, according to one staffer that's worked for them, that he just doesn't really know what he wants and doesn't really understand. He was very privileged, right? He was raised essentially with the silver spoon in his mouth. And I understand that there were challenges that come with being part of the royal family, but it didn't seem like he had much of a big issue with being part of the royal family. One, because it's all he's ever known, but until Meghan Markle came along. And then when she came along, I think she exposed him to life outside of the royal family and how they could still have this popularity, but they don't need to follow the royal duties. And it seems like he doesn't really know who he is. And he, I think, defers to Meghan. But these sources claim that he doesn't want to be famous the way Meghan wants to be famous. And I think it's because Meghan grew up very ambitious, as we learned in Revenge. She always wanted to be in the spotlight. She wanted to be on stage. She wanted to be a showman. Whereas Harry was born into that life, that I think it's the opposite. I think Harry wants to be out of the spotlight. I think he just wants to have a normal life. And I think with Meghan came the promise of a normal life, but there's not necessarily much of that normal life that you get when you're constantly exposing yourself, which we'll get into, because we have the neighbors that are speaking out against Meghan and Harry, because I guess they've had issues with Meghan and Harry's life in Montecito, because they obviously moved to Montecito for a quiet life, but it doesn't appear that life is so quiet there, and the neighbors are definitely fired up about it. So, yeah. But before we get into what the neighbors have to say about the royal refugees, I just wanted to remind everybody that this week's episodes are sponsored by Rocket Money. The start of a new year is the perfect time to get organized, set goals, and prioritize what matters most. For me, a top priority is my financial wellness, which feels more important than ever right now. Thanks to Rocket Money, my goals feel achievable. They show me all of my subscriptions right in one place and help me easily cancel the ones that I forgot about that I've been paying for. Rocket Money pulls together all of my spending across all of my different accounts so I can clearly track my spending habits and see where I can cut back. For example, just yesterday, I got an email from Rocket Money, and they're like, do you know you spent $111 on? So we have different vending machines here in the building that I live in. One of them has like preset meals, like, I guess I don't want to name drop any companies, but they have those meal delivery services. Well, we have a meal delivery refrigerator that you can go and buy pre-made meals that are available, similar to like a lot of those subscription services. But so there's that one, and then there's like a separate vending machine that has like protein drinks and kombucha and probiotic sodas and all of like healthy snacks. So it's essentially a vending machine but with healthier snacks. And so I would occasionally just like go and like, oh, today I need a protein shake, or today I want a kombucha or whatever, and I would go, or sparkling water, and I would order from them. And then yesterday Rocket Money sent me an email and they're like, "Do you know that you've in the past couple of weeks spent $111 on this vending machine?" And I was like, "Well, damn, healthy snacks add up. The Maha life adds up." But Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings, right? Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of all your expenses across all accounts. You can easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track. You can see your monthly spending trends in any category to know exactly where your money is going. You can get alerts if bills increase in price. Then there's also, spending activity, or if you're looking to stay on budget, Rocket Money can help. I know they even give nice tips and tricks. This week, I also got an email from them about Spotify, because I sign up for a Spotify and I pay a monthly fee. And they're just like, "Do you know you can save money? Rather than paying for Spotify monthly, you can just get the annual subscription and you'll be saving money that way." So they also do help you cut costs. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when you use their app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/no filter today. That's Rocket Money, ROCKET, rocketmoney.com/no filter. Rocketmoney.com/no filter. All right, let's get back to Meghan and Harry. So, as I said, Harry doesn't seem to be very comfortable in the public life, whereas Meghan seems to really gravitate towards it. She seems to enjoy it a lot more. But they say that when he's by himself, that he's actually very comfortable. People seem to enjoy him. He's very, nothing extraordinary, not in a bad way, but just in like he's a very humble, chill dude. But when Megan's in the room, then there's obviously a circus that always comes with that. And there's all this, it's just, it's chaos when she's around. There's always a production around her, which takes him out of that chill, comfortable space. And so he believes that people are out for her the same way that people were out for his mother, Princess Diana. And so it seems like he wants to protect her. And my personal opinion is I think he has mommy issues. And I've said that for years. And I think Meghan Markle is that motherly figure that he's been seeking out. Another staffer says that it's like Meghan is reparenting him. Obviously, he lost his mother at a young age, so he never really got to have that mommy experience. And now here comes mommy dearest. Meghan Markle's in play now. Now, Meghan Markle, who claims that she never knew about Prince Harry and never knew about, having to curtsy in front of the Queen. Apparently, this new narrative is not in line with people that knew her or worked with her prior. And they're just like, listen, Meghan Markle's the type of person that will call the restaurant ahead of time and check where the best tables are at and would review the menu before going in so she knows exactly what's on the menu and what she wants to eat. Like, she's the type of person that always checks everything before going into it. She doesn't go into things blindly. So they call it preposterous and outrageous that she would not know that you're supposed to curtsy in front of the Queen, or not know any of the formalities that would likely come with dating a prince, or not knowing who Prince Harry was at all. She doesn't like going into anything blind, so lots of doubts about her awareness of the royal family, because that narrative seems to have shifted quite a bit. And then they also note Meghan Markle's wardrobe, because you know how when she was in the royal family, or she was fulfilling the duties of the royal family, that she was talking about how she would have to wear muted tones and neutrals so that she didn't overpower the Queen or overpower Kate Middleton. Like, she was very much, or senior members of the royal family, she had to kind of dress, very neutral and like kind of fade into the background. And then this person, this source in Vanity Fair, is like, but look at her wardrobe now. She still wears muted tones. She still wears earth colors and neutrals and nudes. Like, that's just her style. So for her to say that she was only dressing like that because of the royal family doesn't even align because her style has always been pretty consistently that. It was never really bright and colorful, and it seems like, there were a couple of moments where she would add some color and some flair, but for the most part, majority of her style is very muted. Which makes sense. She's like a sleek, very, fashionista type of woman, and I think I'd love Meghan Markle's style, and I think that's part of what Americans loved about Meghan Markle. She was very chic, she was very stylish. Whereas I think someone like Kate Middleton's a little more regal. She's a little more royal with her style, whereas Meghan's a bit more fashionista. It's a bit more I don't know, like businesswoman walking the streets tearing it up in New York, right? I just feel because New York is very, like, fashion forward, but it's also, like, business and savvy and, like, smart and, it's just it's got that sharp look to it that I think Megan is really good at. She's good at that preppy sort of look, right? That, like, fashion prep. Whereas I think Kate Middleton, very regal, very royal, the fancy hats and the buttons and the brooch and all of that sort of stuff. But doesn't seem like the royal family was behind Meghan Markle's style choices. It just appears that those had been her preferences, since that's kind of what she's always worn. Then there's some questions about them still milking the royal family despite their claims of leaving the monarchy, because they still like to use, the title of Sussexes. And there are times where, they like to be treated like royals. And so a lot of the contradictions with the history of racism in the royal family, but then Meghan and Harry still like want to be attached to it. Like, remember, they claim like, oh, the royal family has these undertones of racism, and they were asking about the baby's skin color and all of that. And so they seem to still be attached to the royal, or still like to be in proximity with the royal family. And so it pulls into question, well, if you guys are so much about your philanthropy and you made these allegations of racism and these allegations of the royal family and the monarchy being so out of date, then like, why do you still want association to that? If you really want to cut ties and walk away from that life and walk away from that family altogether, then why are you still kind of attaching yourself to it? It doesn't make sense. Then we get into the Montecito residents, their neighbors, and they go on record and talk about how it used to be very quiet and quaint in Montecito. They didn't have all of the production or the commotion that Meghan and Harry have now brought to Montecito. They claim that Meghan and Harry want to escape public life, yet they've essentially made Montecito their new playground. And so Harry and Meghan have been filming their new Netflix shows. I guess Harry has like a docu-series that's going to be coming out on Netflix. And so they've seen him film that around town. Meghan Markle's been filming around town her new Netflix series that I believe is now dropping in March. It was supposed to drop in January, but that's where she's like cooking with people, and it's supposed to like take a modern twist on that aspirational lifestyle, whatever. It's like they want it to be the 2025 Goop from 10 years ago. And so, which to me is just like an overplayed sort of idea. But whatever, it's coming in March. And so they're saying that like them filming their shows in Montecito and like the paparazzi and like all of these things, you see them kind of like, you see Harry riding his bike around town, you see the paparazzi capturing him, that they, despite how many celebs actually live out there, there was not this big circus that has now come to Montecito with the royal couple being there. But Harry and Meghan, they're out there, camera crews, photographers, everything, all about. Cameras never seem to not find them. We just saw them recently at the LA fires and the Eaton fires, and seen them, and the paparazzi were there, and they're, on the fields. And I heard an argument about that, about how like Meghan and Harry, the royal couple, the royal refugees, they know that if they show up to something, it's going to become about them, right? Like the narrative will be focused on them, and they know this by now. They know how the media works, and I think they secretly like it, and that's why they continue to insert themselves where they're going to drive headlines, right? So it does make sense that that's kind of their priority, is getting attention and headlines for looking good rather than just trying to do good, because the argument could be made, or the argument was made, that if you want to help, then there's a way to do it, and to do it silently. And you can do that with your money. You can do that with influence behind closed doors, but they very much like to be boots on the ground. And I think it's because they know that they're going to become the story. And so even though they act like it's begrudging, oh, I the paparazzi just follow us everywhere and we're so famous and we can't get away from them. Like if you already know that that's the game and you're not tipping the paparazzi off yourself, then you know that you're about to become the story. So rather than take over and hijack the story, very similar to Jay-Z. Remember a couple months ago when Jay-Z went to the premiere of Mufasa right after he was named in that recent Diddy lawsuit? Jay-Z didn't need to go to that premiere. Beyonce could have gone and they could have brought the star power of Blue Ivy's parents with just Beyonce there, or Jay-Z could have very easily just attended the event without having to walk the red carpet. But him walking the red carpet, then everybody put the focus on him, and the story became about him rather than Blue Ivy being in Mufasa because of the recent attachment to the Diddy lawsuit. So you know when you're going to be the story, and you either go into it deliberately because you want to be the story, or you just disengage altogether. But then we get into this very juicy rumor about this divorce book. So apparently Meghan Markle or her team, someone was shopping around a post-divorce book, not in relation to her last divorce, but seemingly in relation to a potential future divorce with Prince Harry. And so what I think happened here, because they were saying, oh, well, there was never a manuscript that was developed, there was never a formal proposal, there was never a contract. It was just something that was allegedly floating around. And I think it was allegedly floating around because I think her team knows they have to figure out what her game plan is going to be for the future. And I think one of those considerations was, what if you get divorced? What would your life look like? Is it more beneficial, like David Beckham and Victoria Beckham? Is it more beneficial to stay together and to have the united brand? Or could she possibly have a bigger, better brand if she leaves Prince Harry? Which I think if she leaves Prince Harry, that would be devastating for him. I genuinely believe he is wholeheartedly in love with her. With her, on the other hand, I don't know how I feel about that. But according to this article, they want to change the world, but they don't really seem to know what that means, making it appear like one big vanity affair. Do you like my play on words there? And then I'll read you the final the wrap of this article because it was actually, puts a nice little bow on Meghan and Harry. Harry Potter. It's a very long article, so you're welcome. But so she ends the article by writing, I think that they know. I think they don't know what change the world means, says the person who worked in the media projects. They want to be people who are looked at as people who want to change the world. Maybe that's why Meghan has continued on Nick News, in the TIG, on panels, on archetypes, in Columbia in August, to bring up the story of writing a letter to Procter and Gamble about a sexist soap ad, taking credit for them changing the spot so that it is no longer suggesting that women should be the ones doing the dishes. Dumb. Procter and Gamble declined many requests from Vanity Fair to confirm that Meghan was the impetus for the switch, and in 2021, the company partnered with Archwell with the goal of elevating the voices of adolescent girls to ensure their point of view and lived experience is heard at the tables where decisions are made. Whether or not Meghan's letter is what prompted the change, the fact that more than 30 years later she continues to speak up about having spoken up suggests that it's kind of a mission that she aspires to. Marie, who has worked with many celebrities, says of the Sussex aspirations, I think it's actually better than what most people start out, than where most people start out. The point out of modesty of the world's bettering feels like contributing to the essential problem of Meghan and Harry. No matter what they do, they just can't win. If, I guess, you don't count the overwhelming portion of their beautiful lives that exists outside of Daily Mail headlines and the blog comment section. If Harry's burden is the soft oppression of no expectations, Meghan's might be the opposite, the betrayal of not living up to the achievable ideal. I think the whole world was waiting for her to be that person, and then she never jumped, the source who worked in the media says. Diana walked amongst landmines. Meghan couldn't even say the word slut. Yeah, I think Meghan tries to compare herself. She wants to be like Princess Diana, and I think she's even convinced Prince Harry that she is just like Princess Diana, which is why he's bought into that narrative, right? But as the point is made in the end of this article, Princess Diana is somebody that put herself out there on the front lines. She was willing to go against whatever the monarchy had said she should do. She was unafraid of challenging that. She was unafraid of being her own person. And so I think in her head, Meghan thinks that she is a Princess Diana figure, but she's just not, right? Like she's too hyper aware. She's too self conscious to ever make any real influence or impact. Everything just has to be very curated in a very, Martha Stewart goop esque sort of way, which just is why I don't think it lands with a lot of people. Let's see. Desara13 says Meghan and Harry are innocent and happy, and all the negative press is paid for by the royal family. They want them back in the UK, but they are never going back. Diana would be so proud of them. Doubtful. Anna M says Meghan was a wannabe influencer with a blog. She really only dug into her charity and philanthropy. It was part of building her profile in order to give the illusion that she was something that she's not. I actually agree with this, Anna. I think Meghan Markle aspires to want to be that type of person. I just don't think she actually is or is willing to, to do that enough. Or to like really put herself similar to Princess Diana on the front lines to be able to challenge the narrative. Anytime she's done it, it's been like a cheap shot, right? Blaming the royal family for being racist and saying that they discriminated against her, but then the allegations were kind of vague and we didn't really get much substance to it. But it was, the climate that our culture was in was to lean into that. And that's very much what she did. She leans into whatever the popular social issue of the moment is. Joe says, Zach, do you think that you would be open to marketing and promoting a rom-com movie starring Amber Heard, Blake Lively, and Meghan Markle? How would you sell it? I would never be open to that. I would absolutely pass on that, and I would never watch it. So if that makes me anti-woman, then so be it. Diana was effortless. Yes, she was. Diana was effortless. Look at the photos from her trip to Rwanda in 2016. What about them, Anna? I still remember being a kid and seeing the headlines of Princess Diana hugging someone with AIDS. That was big and bold and controversial. Remember that? Meghan Markle could never. Meghan Markle would never. Meghan Markle is the type to be like, ew, no, thank you. Princess Diana, very much somebody that challenged the status quo and paid the price for it dearly, right? Jussie Smollett would be the perfect love interest. I mean, I'm sure. Davida Paul says, Zach, if you pay close attention, Harry's under supreme love spell. Love language. Meghan's love language is what you can do for me versus transactional relationships and money between her and whomever she benefits from. I think I kind of pick up what you were trying to say, and I co-sign it. Tiwa Tambo says, well, in all honesty, have we ever seen any other skin color in the palace, like on a full-time basis? No, we haven't. I'm not saying that there isn't some sort of history of that, but there's one thing to let it develop organically, and then there's another thing to like force it, right? And I think we've seen that reflected on like Real Housewives, right? When there's been controversy and people have said, oh, this cast is all white, it's predominantly white, and then they intentionally cast a token person of color and they try to fit that onto the cast, and it doesn't work well because it's not organic, right? And it feels forced. Similar to, if you don't want to focus on race and you want to focus on age, I think Leah McSweeney was a great example on Real Housewives of New York prior to Ebony, right? Leah didn't really fit in with the rest of the cast members because she was just a bit of an outlier, and it felt like they were just trying to force in somebody younger. Whereas the Tinsley worked a little bit better because she had a history and a relationship with Sonia, and I think Tinsley kind of came in as someone that was the young one but kind of looked up to the other ladies, whereas Leah just it felt like it was forced. Soon says, Meghan Markle lacks authenticity, genuine, or sincerity. She is so calculated and doesn't do anything unless it serves and profits her. I agree with that. I think I think she lacks that authenticity, and nobody really knows the real Meghan Markle. And then you hear these stories of how difficult she is to work with behind the scenes. And it just is tough. Maybe next episode could be Diana conspiracies. Oh, maybe if you guys are interested in that. We've discussed that in the past, and people seem to have had interest in it. We've just never fully explored the Diana stuff. Harry got his wish being told what to do. I think he prefers being told. I think he's used to being told what to do. He was raised in this royal family that never really gave him an opportunity to have a distinct or unique voice of his own. I remember Princess Diana walking through landmines. I do not believe her death was accidental either. Yeah. In my opinion, Harry feels stuck in the relationship. He's burnt so many bridges. I don't think he feels stuck. I think he burned those bridges believing that this was worth it, which is why if Meghan does ever leave him, I think it would absolutely devastate him because he gave up everything for what he believed was the love story that was going to, take him to the end of the earth and fly off into the sunset together. Right. I think he genuinely believes that he did the right thing by choosing his wife. And I don't know. I just feel based off of everything we've learned about Meghan Markle, I just feel like she's very ambitious, and again, that's not a bad thing, but I think she would very quickly move on. So, I mean, yeah, like I've said, we've done a number of different deep dives into the royal couple. I watched their Netflix series. We read Tom Bower's Revenge. Read Prince Harry's Spare. So there are tons of videos on YouTube specifically. I mean, or you can look them up on the podcast, but I think it's probably easier to find them on YouTube of the royal family. Maybe I'll make a playlist of all the royal coverage. But the real question is, would Zach's buddy Jeff hook up with redheaded Prince Harry? That's a really good question, Joe. I don't know if Jeff would. I think I know Jeff's type, and I don't know if I mean, I guess he would find Harry cute, but I don't think Harry's somebody he would date. I think Harry's a little too soft for Jeff. Meghan wasted an opportunity to do true humanitarian good when she chose to walk away from the royal family with her husband. She didn't have the backbone to weather the storm. Yeah, I think if she really wanted to change and shake that system up, she would have done the Diana thing and she would have really, fought harder to have a stronger say or to at least challenge things the way that I think Princess Diana did for sure. Diana's death and the reaction towards Harry in the aftermath imprinted on him hard. Oh, for sure. I mean, that at the end of the day, he was a young boy and this was still his mother. So that's obviously going to leave a strong impression on him for sure. Okay. Any other thoughts, feelings, vibes before we wrap up today's episode? Hopefully, this was like a fun, juicy bit to leave with to end the week on. Um, yeah. Thank you guys. I love you. I appreciate you. Give me a follow at Just Plain Zack all over the internet or follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack. I think I'm going to do a new Instagram reel because I know we kind of touched on it yesterday about the Blake Lively and all the allegate. Remember the list of 30 items that she had in her complaint? And then everything that has since been disputed. And maybe we'll do a side by side. Blake Lively's claim next to Justin Baldoni's evidence against it. I think that could be kind of fun, right? Let's do that. All right, stay tuned, and maybe I'll actually make that an entire episode on the podcast on Monday. Stay tuned. Let me know your thoughts. Leave me a nice Apple Podcast review. I will be sure to do some shout outs on Monday's episode of the podcast. So head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating, drop a comment, drop a review. It really does help the podcast. It helps us. It's free to do. It takes 2 seconds to leave a 5-star rating, and it takes, just a few more to actually type something out. A lot of reviews have come in that I've been reading, and I appreciate that. So please continue to keep leaving them if you haven't. You can leave new ones anytime. You can leave a new one every week if you'd like. They really do help. So I appreciate you guys. Yeah. Shout out to Melissa Gorga, who sent me her new sprinkle cookies for Valentine's Day. They're delicious. I did a review on Instagram that you can check out. So go check out my review of Melissa Gorga's cookies. They're delicious. They're yummy. Give them a try. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Ciao for now. Bye.